Just a little update on my CX-5 warranty saga. It's not really a saga, but I got my CX-5 dropped off this morning for a new headlight, and it needs an oil change, so I figured kill two stones with one bird. This is what they gave me for a loaner. It's a 2022 CX-30, and I gotta say, this is a nice little car. You know, it's smaller, but this one's loaded. It's got a heads-up display. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's got a heads-up display. It's a little distracting, but kind of neat, no less. It's got the all-around camera option, so when you put it in reverse, you can actually see around you. Being a CX-30, this is a newer product than what I own. My CX-5 has been rolling on the same chassis since 2013, and this is the CX-30, which is a totally different chassis. It's a newer design, only a couple of years. I think it's about 2 years old, maybe 3 years old now. But the CX-5 is based on much older technology, and it's pretty evident in a lot of the little features that this car has, like the blind spot monitoring chime is more of a digitized, like a chime, whereas on the CX-5, it's a bit more abrupt. It's got basically the same climate control as the CX-5, but just the little small touches that they put in this car indicate it's a newer product overall. But the seats hug you very nicely, kind of like the CX-5 seats do. But boy, this car is small. It's lower to the ground. I whacked my head getting in. I mean, it hurts. I still have a headache from it, from getting into this car. I'm not too crazy about Mazda's interpretation of blending digital and analog. The speedometer, I would prefer an analog speedometer, and you can digitize the rest, but they did it backwards. You know, the speedometer is a giant rounded LCD screen, and then you've got your analog. Whereas it's funny because on my CX-5, it's the other way around. You've got a digitized you've got an LCD panel displaying the fuel and temp, and it has an analog speedometer and tach. It's kind of strange that they would do it like that, but hey, whatever. I don't think it's visually appealing. I think it's something rattling around in the glove box. But this car is nice and tight. I mean, not that my CX-5 isn't, but this is tighter. I mean, it has a nice road feel. I had not even considered a CX-30 because of its size. I rather wanted the CX-5 for the cargo capacity. And, of course, the roof height is nice, too. It's also higher off the ground. But this is I would buy one of these. If I was looking for something a little bit more compact, I would totally buy one of these. Does this thing have a heated steering wheel? It does. Oh, look at that. That's what my Santa Fe Sport had, that option, and I miss it dearly on those cold winter days, winter mornings. Oh my God. I actually ran all winter long with the steering wheel heater turned on. I've reached a point in my life where I couldn't survive without heated seats because they do help with like backaches and stuff. It's funny because heated seats didn't really become a thing for the reasons you think they did. Heated seats started out, I believe, in Saab products. So Saab started out offering them in the 60s. And it wasn't for, I mean, yeah, it has a side benefit of, you know, warming you up faster on cold winter mornings, but they also again, help to improve circulation and relieve back tension. And that was the reason initially. It was a safety thing, strangely enough. Steering wheel gets up to temperature fast. Like, real fast. I'm liking that heads-up display. That's kind of neat. I would take a little bit of getting used to, though. I just got into this car. I have a very short commute to work, so I haven't really played with anything yet. Oh, does it have a touchscreen? I heard somewhere that some of the newer products actually do, but I guess not. But this is more in line with what the CX-50 is all about. The CX-50 is what replaces the CX-5. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. It is the replacement for the CX-5. And it is a little bit more, I would say, creature comfort refined, a little more refined, I guess, in how the various components interact with each other. The CX-5, it just has very little integration, I guess, and I'm going to find out in a few minutes when I park this thing at work. I want to see if the sunroof alerts the body control module that it's left open, and if it chimes or alerts me in any way when I get out of the car. I'm going to leave the sunroof open for that reason. We're going to see what it does. But the complexity of the body control module is what allows those features to occur, or to exist. I don't know if this thing has the turnable headlamps. I think it does. I mean, at this price point, with this level of equipment, it should. But anyway, getting back to, the CX-30 as in my short, quick little test drive, if you put the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder from the CX-5 into a smaller chassis, man, you don't need anything else. You don't need turbo. You don't need a V6. You don't need anything. This engine screws. It does pretty well on the CX-5, but you put it in this smaller package, and again, I believe it's the same transmission as well. I think it's a 6-speed automatic. But yeah, you put it in a smaller package, and you got a force to be reckoned with. Now, this isn't gonna like slam you into the seats or anything, but I mean, for the amount of usable power that the average person needs, this has got it in spades. This is like the perfect car. I mean, again, I'm basing this on a very short, very brief test drive, but so one of the things that I've noticed about my CX-5 is just how pure 90s it is. I mean, the way the body control module, the amount of features that it lacks, the little touches, that it lacks, which is not a complaint, it's just an observation. But if I open this sunroof, how do you open the sunroof? There we go. All right, I leave it open, right? I shut the car off. And I open the door. Oh, interesting. This is interesting. Let's turn it back on.
My administration worked tirelessly to
It's telling me I need to buckle up. Okay, that's normal. So it doesn't have a mechanism for alerting you that the sunroof is open. But this is interesting. On mine, when you open the doors, the LCD panel displays a picture of the car with the door open. On this one, it just has a light. That's kind of interesting. It's interesting to me, okay? All right. I shut it off. You have no accessory power retained. But the window express up and down work. Okay. We'll have to play with this car a little bit, but I got to go to work now, so Okay, so I'm gonna eat a bunch of crow. I lied. This car is a Skyactiv 2.5, or it could be a 2.0. Could be a 2-liter. I have to look at what. I love this backup camera. This is way nicer than what's in my car. I'm just gonna call him and tell him to keep my CX-5. I'm just gonna take this. This is a possibly a 2.0 turbo. So yeah, this is not a 2.5 NA engine. This is a turbo, possibly a 2-liter. It screws. It really does. Yeah, no complaints. But that means that this is more than likely the top trim level. This is probably the top end for a CX-30. Unfortunately, the heated steering wheel doesn't remain on. That's the thing I don't like about a lot of cars, is you have to keep turning the heated options on every time you drive it. If you drive a Subaru, however, you just flip the switch and it stays on all the time. I guess there's a reason for that, but whatever. Yeah, this thing's got a little power. The transmission definitely limits its output, but yeah, because when you put your foot down, it doesn't just go. It hesitates. Let's see. I'm gonna do a quick little pull here. Yeah, could be electronically limiting the throttle and or the transmission. So, but you cannot hear the turbo spool though. Yeah, you cannot hear a turbo spool. That I didn't even know this was a turbo until I saw the badge as I'm walking up to it. But yeah, if you're going to design a cluster around a digital screen, I don't like. You know what it is? I don't like the fake roundedness of that. I just feel like, I mean, if you're gonna not do the analog thing, then don't do the analog thing. You know. That's just, there we go. We can switch this out that way. All right, that just looks stupid to me. If you're going to simulate, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of, fake granite countertops, and I don't like fake analog gauges either. I think it's cheesy. I think it's weak. It's not my thing. Knowing full well, by the way, that analog gauges are driven electronically, it doesn't bother me. It's the fact that it's fake. I don't like fake things. But it's a nice car. You know, I would buy this. If I couldn't really get comfortable in it though. I've kind of tried readjusting the seat a few times. I'm not used to it. That's what it is. It would take me a few weeks, a few days maybe. A few days. There's another CX-5 in front of me. I see them everywhere. Now, I like my CX-5. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to regret going back to it. I love the car. I bought it because I loved it, and I still do, and that doesn't change. But this is kind of eye-opening to some of Mazda's other offerings, and how even they can produce a small compact SUV, I think this is a subcompact. They can produce a small subcompact SUV that I just want to take this thing on a track. You know, I want to drive the hell out of this thing because it feels like it would have the handling of, you know, of a very capable sports car. Again, I'm not saying that a CX-30 is a sports car. I'm just saying it. I feel like this thing can do so much more. It has a lot of capabilities. you know, it has a an acceleration curve that makes you want to push it, which could be dangerous. Check this out. And I believe those turn signals are on an LCD screen. No, they're off the screen. Those are just LEDs. Okay. Had me going for a second. Not a big fan of this cluster design because it's so fake, but they didn't do a bad job. I mean, it's not ugly. It's just, you know, it's fake. You got the vents. This is interesting. This is a trend I'm seeing on other cars. The way they designed and I think Tesla started that, where they designed the passenger side vents into a like what's supposed to simulate a long vent. You know, a seamlessly long almost dash width grate or vent. This is a nice little car. And it turns tightly too. It handles better than the CX-5. I'll give it that. It has a much tighter, much more athletic. I guess that would be one way to put it. It has a more athletic, tighter, sportier feel than the CX-5. I kind of don't want my car back. This is the second time that's happened to me. So I had I bought a brand new 2010 Hyundai Elantra GT one year. 2010, I bought this car. I love this camera. So I had to bring it in to have its transmission replaced fairly early on. And they gave me a brand new Hyundai Santa Fe, and I don't remember, it was a fairly high trim level. It was a nice car. I didn't want to give it back. Imagine going from that to a base model Elantra. I mean, that was something else. But let's take a look at this thing. One of the things this is doing is it's automatically applying the parking brake when I shut it off. Oh, this doesn't. Let's take a look at some of this interior stuff here. So this slides back, and then it opens. There's a little divider here. Looks like there's supposed to be a little parcel holder. Little cubby for something. You got your two USBs. There's no navigation map in this one. There's your 12-volt power. Does that close? Yeah, it does. I think these are built in Mexico. Okay, so this is it's adjustable. I see. But it doesn't open in this position. You have to pull it back. Okay. All right. Glove box. That's what's rattling around in there. How much does this thing cost? Well, at least I can say I didn't pay that for my car. So I guess, you get what you pay for. But $36,000. $36,000. Oh my God. That's a lot of money for a car. But it really isn't, though. It really isn't. Not in 2020. Oh, it's got a bi-level glove box. So you've got this compartment, and then you've got a compartment above it. Okay. Got your LED map lights. My CX-5 doesn't have LEDs. They're incandescent, which is really surprising. Fairly cramped backseat area. Okay, now this is interesting. The CX-5 has acoustic glass. This is single pane. This is the turbocharged. Which size is this? 2022. Doesn't tell me. Doesn't say what size it is. I think it's a 2-liter though. Oh, very nice. It's already scratched. Mexican build. Yep, Mazda manufacturing, Mexico. Power lift gate. Now this is why I didn't buy a CX-30. So the CX-5, CX-9, they have a load flat floor in the back, but this is built more like a hatchback. So cargo space drops down. I'm not a fan of that. Also, the CX-30 does not have a remote seat pull, so you have to close the seats from inside the car, or you can just reach over. So you get a smaller cargo space, which kind of sucks. But like the CX-5, you get one inadequate light in the back, which kind of wish they'd put one on the other side too. I like the plush carpeting. It's not a bad car. There is an optional cargo cover that this one doesn't have. Nice leather appointed door pockets. I bet you this thing has heated rear seats. There we go. Open this down. Okay, so there's nothing. There's no USB ports. That's something the CX-5 has. There's USB ports in the back. And there would be seat heater switches back there too. It doesn't have that. Careful, this doesn't have the headroom that I'm used to. It smells nice too. So anyway, one of the things I don't like about this particular car, and it's more of a trim level thing. Look, when I bought my CX-5, I could have bought one of the carbon editions. They actually had one on hand, and it was only $1,000 more. But I like the red interior. I just think it's unique. I think it's cool. Really, really was liking the carbon edition. But it had one thing that I will not buy. It had black wheels. And black painted alloy wheels look great. Just like chrome wheels look great when you drive them off the lot. Give it a couple New England winters and a couple of tire changes, and they quickly begin to look like hell. As that paint gets scratched, as that chrome starts to corrode, you've got some of the ugliest wheels within about 2 years, 3 years maybe. You've got the ugliest wheels on the road. Not to mention, black wheels get dirty immediately after washing them. So this car, I thought this car, now, just me being naive, I thought it had plasti-dipped wheels. And I'm thinking, why would a dealer plasti-dip wheels on a brand new car? Now, obviously, they weren't plastic dipped. I was thinking, well, maybe they were just painted that way. Sure enough, they're not supposed to be matte black. They're actually gloss black. But I'll show you what they look like in a minute. I thought they were painted that way. And I'm thinking, that looks terrible. I mean, that looks really bad. Why would they do that? Well, they're covered in brake dust. And they just look terrible. I also don't like machine-faced rims either. That's my pet peeve. I'm very picky when it comes to wheels. I like alloy wheels, but I just don't like them to be over-styled, machine-faced, or black. I'm pretty narrow in my acceptance of what I want in a round object that rolls on the ground. Also, not a big fan of low-profile tires because I had a really bad experience with those. Like, show me on the doll where the low-profile tires hurt you level of post-traumatic stress from owning a car with 17-inch wheels and low-profile tires for 5 years. I bent all 4 of those rims. Yeah. Cost me $600 to have them all fixed. But anyway, I'll show you what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Now, one nice thing about this is that being a newer generation product, it automatically unlocks itself as I'm getting into it. It has a proxy. It reads the proxy sensor on the key fob, and as soon as it sees me touch the handle, it automatically unlocks it, which is kind of nice because it just one less button you have to press. But that's kind of a newer generation, newer product kind of feature, and the CX-5 that I'm driving doesn't have that. Although I think the higher end models do, like the signature model, I think, or signature trim. Not really sure about that, but yeah, it's a nice thing to have. Just running errands for work, so being able to drive this car is kind of fun. I had to pick up some supplies for our annual holiday party, so I had to pick up some bread and some soda and a few things. But I kind of like this car. No, don't get me wrong, I love my CX-5. I'm not planning on trading it in for one of these. In fact, if I were to trade the CX-5 in, I would go for a CX-50, I think. I couldn't go any smaller than the CX-5. But, I mean, think of the CX-30 not as a cheaper alternative to the CX-5, because it isn't. I believe the CX-30 and its counterpart, the CX-50, are similar in price. There really isn't a huge difference between the two price-wise, depending on how they're configured, of course. But I would look at the CX-30 as a smaller, sportier alternative to the larger, heavier CX-50. The CX-5 is really not a competitor to this. I mean, it kind of is, but it is more than likely an outgoing model, and I don't picture Mazda keeping them around much longer. The CX-50 is, no pun intended, the launch vehicle for the Toyota Mazda factory in the US. So you'll probably see less Japanese imports coming over for the US market. But, they're doing the whole Honda Toyota thing where they start in Nissan, where they're manufacturing their US bound models right here in the good old US of A. You wouldn't really know by driving it or looking at it that this was built in Mexico, rather than Japan. The build quality between the factories should be on parity with each other. Full stop. There really should not be a difference depending on where the car is made from one to the other. They do build these all over the world. I think they build these in Japan as well. And we just happen to get the Mexican-built ones here in the U.S. I've owned I've owned cars built in Mexico, the US, Japan. Yeah, and I think I even had one that was made in Canada once. There really was no difference in quality between them. I've owned Nissans built in Mexico, Japan, and the US. I'll put it that way. And there was not a difference. In fact, the one that gave me the most problems was actually built in Japan. And that was my Murano. My Hyundais. I had a Korean built. I had 2 Korean built and 1 US built Hyundai. In fact, the one that gave me the least problems was the 2014 Korean built Elantra GT. The one that gave me the most problems was a 2010 Hyundai Elantra GLS, which went through like a dozen transmissions and other things. Never had a problem to speak of with the American built Santa Fe. So, I mean, where the car is made should not matter as much. Unless now there's a caveat to that. Unless a factory is set up incorrectly. Let's say the paint booth in the Mexican plant is skipping a step because they weren't properly trained, or because the procedures were improperly written, and they're skipping, the zinc coating or something like that. Those cars are going to rust. But usually problems like that are found out fairly early on, as they have factory representatives in the Mexican plant overseeing the operations. Another thing to consider is the robots welding the body panels together are often running the same software. They're the same robots running the same software, just in a different location. A lot of people do get hung up on country of origin. Now, personally, the only country I will never buy a car from is China. And that's for personal reasons. I just feel that China has taken over far too much of the world's manufacturing, and I draw my line at automobiles. That's where I draw the line. Let somebody else make a few bucks on manufacturing. Let some other workers do the jobs. You can't be building everything. So I personally don't care where the car is made. I kind of like having a Japanese-built Japanese car, or a German-built German car, or a US-built American car. But it's not going to prevent me from buying the vehicle entirely. Again, I would never buy a car built in China. Even though this car, which was built in Mexico, contains Chinese parts. A lot of components are made in China in this car. Not a majority of the parts, but there are some. Like, for example, when I looked under the hood, I found that one of the coolant hoses was made in China. Not surprising. In fact, China can, and it's not a quality thing. I feel that China can build cars just as good as anybody else. It's more of I don't like the idea of giving them all of the manufacturing. I think that, and the way they treat their employees, the way they treat their citizens, I have a problem with that. I'd rather my car be built by somebody who's able to, earn a middle-class salary and live a decent life, than somebody being paid slave wages and living in the factory apartment buildings, 5 to a room, because that's kind of how it is over there. But anyway, enough of that. I kind of like this car, and if I were in the market for a subcompact SUV, this would do it. I mean, it's comfortable. It's even got all highs, no lows. Must be Bose. Yeah, it's got Bose. Interestingly, this car was able to get it when mine couldn't because of shortages, but whatever. Let's see. Anything else I missed? Got the sunroof. It's exactly the same sunroof, by the way, as the CX-5. Same mechanism, same glass, same pull shade, same handle. This doesn't work. Yeah, did I mention that? This light doesn't, it works when it wants to. Oh wait, no, it's actually, oh, okay. All right, there's like a tilt sensor in there. That's clever. Okay, I get it now. That's clever. So if you have this up all the way, the light's not going to blind you unnecessarily. Oh, well, look at that. And it turns off too. That's cool. That's really cool. Same thing over here. Yup, they did it there too. Freaking awesome, man. So I'm on my way to drop off the CX-30 to pick up my CX-5. And look, there's another CX-5. I see them everywhere now. And you know, I was talking to a coworker about this car. She's got a Hyundai Kona that she bought after owning a Mini Cooper for 5 years. And she got rid of the Mini because the cost of ownership was absolutely ridiculous. And I had to convince her, I actually had to convince her to get rid of the Mini. I said, you know what? You are suffering from vehicular Stockholm syndrome with this car, because every time I see you, you just put $5,000 into this car. And you know, at that point, it was, I think she had 130,000 miles. Oh, look at that. You can't see it on the phone, but it actually shows you the lane guidance while you are, on the heads-up display. That's a nice feature. So anyway, yeah, so this Mini she had racked up 130 some odd thousand miles. And I said, you've got to get rid of this car. So she, I didn't tell her what to buy. Oh, wow, this has active lane guidance. So it actually will steer you away from, whereas my CX-5 only has a passive system that doesn't actively steer you away from the line. That's interesting. That's a unique feeling I wasn't expecting. I've got another Mazda behind me. Jesus, they're everywhere. Good too, because Mazda builds a great product. Anyway, so she bought a Hyundai. What is that? Oh, blind spot monitoring. It sounds different. Mine, it goes beep, beep, beep. Again, older generation versus new, even though they're the same age. It's the same age as my car. But it's a different generation. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so she bought herself a Hyundai Kona. She went from a Mini Cooper Countryman to a Hyundai Kona, and she really isn't happy with the vehicle. She has never been happy with that car. It's always been, she says it feels cheap. It drives cheap, it feels cheap, but it's been reliable. It's been a good car, and she saw this and started asking me questions about, wow, what do you think? I'm like, well, I am making a review video of this car, and I actually love it. Would like to compare this, by the way, to a similarly spec'd CX-5. I would love to do that, because that would give me a good idea as to how they tool these options to the individual chassis. I just noticed it has flappy paddles. That's kind of nice. I'm not a big flappy paddle guy. If I'm driving an automatic, I don't want to have to think about shifting gears. This is far from an enthusiast car. I just don't get the point of flappy paddles. I would literally never use them. I just noticed they're here just now as I'm dropping it off. But I did tell her, I said, when you do get sick of that Kona, now again, not to knock the Kona, the Kona is a lesser, it is an entry-level vehicle in every sense of the word. It's basically Hyundai's way of making an accent more marketable to today's consumer. It's basically on par with the Hyundai Accent hatchback, and I think it was literally the replacement for the Hyundai Accent hatchback. It's a subcompact chassis. It is, it is not built like this. It's worlds apart. It's a very inexpensive, very entry-level vehicle in comparison to, something a little bit more substantial like like a Mazda 3 or a Mazda CX-30, there really is no comparison. I mean, the car even looks like it came out of the bargain bin, but it's not a bad vehicle. It's just an inexpensive vehicle. It's a, it's an alternative to, something a little bit more expensive. Well, that's one way to put it. But not by any means a bad vehicle. And she likes it for what it is. But, I told her, when you do start looking, definitely give the CX-30 a try. You might be shocked by the build quality. I mean, everything in this car feels top end. I mean, and it's quiet. It's quiet, and it's just sturdy, and everything just has a nice, confident feel to it. This kind of reminds me a little bit of my Santa Fe Sport, which I love the Santa Fe Sport, and I really wish Hyundai put a better engine in it. If that car had a better motor, I would have kept it. But it had the infamous 2.4 liter Theta 2, which is a GTF engine, guaranteed to fail. Guaranteed, it's gonna fail. And you're never, and the thing that really bothered me the most is you'll never know when it happens. There will be no warning. You'll be cruising along on your way to some critical event, could be going to work, could be going to the hospital, could be going on a trip 2,000-3,000 miles from home, and it just all of a sudden locks up. That's what that's what happens to them. There's no warning. There's no, like with the Ford Triton 5.4 liter engines, you at least get to hear a mechanical ticking sound for a few hundred miles before the thing grenades. But with the Santa Fe or the 2.4 liter Theta 2 engines, without warning, I don't care how good the warranty is. I don't like the idea of driving a ticking time bomb. Just not my thing. So, really wish Hyundai had their shit together, because I loved that vehicle. It was solidly built, on par with this Mazda, I would say. I mean, Hyundai can build a decent product, but when they deliberately screw the pooch by putting in an engine that is a known failure prone engine, well, that kind of sucks that they would even do that. So I got to go turn this in over at Werner Mazda and get my car back. Until then. So we're back in my beloved CX-5. They have repaired the headlight, replaced it looks like, and I've got fresh oil in the sump. All is good in the world. So, had a little bit of sticker shock on that oil change, but I'll recover. I'll be okay. It'll all be fine. Never have I ever paid $75 for an oil change, but I talked to the service advisor after. I didn't even think to ask what the price was until it was done, because normally an oil change would cost me like $50 maybe for full synthetic, oil and filter and all that. And she said that their supplier just their pricing just went through the roof for synthetic oil, and that's just how it is. So I am going to do some of my own research to see what other shops are charging, and to see if I overpaid. I'm sure I did, but damn, that's a lot of money. Now, again, we're using full synthetic, and I'm the kind of person who unnecessarily changes his oil every 3,000 miles. Maybe we stretch that out to 4,500 maybe next time. Yeah, maybe. I just think that's gosh, it's a lot of money. And I don't want to. My channel is apolitical. We don't talk about politics on my channel, so comments on the political spectrum will not be tolerated. They will be removed. Because this is not a U.S. problem. This is a global problem. The cost of everything, especially commodities like oil, is going up worldwide. It's It's just the times we live in, I guess. So maybe I don't need to change it every 3,000 miles. At that price, I'm going to probably stretch it out. Doing my own oil changes is an option, but not a good one. Because the garage is the permanent home of my Miata, which I don't pull out in the winter. I just don't. It doesn't move in the winter. And I would have to, and not only that, but it's a small garage, so getting this car in there and getting the oil changed would be a pain in the ass. The driveway is at a slope, so I don't like the idea of doing an oil change on a sloped driveway, because you'll never get the levels right, and yeah, not a good option. So anyway, maybe we look into that too. Maybe we rethink some of that. I don't know, but $75 is a lot of money for an oil change. Dealer or not, I mean, even at the dealer, that's a lot. Unless the car says BMW on it, I just can't really justify that. I remember when my dad, my parents bought a Mercedes-Benz ML320 back in 2002. And, you know, my mom's like, well, you know, I'm in my 40s now, so it's time that we, you know, I want to, actually, no, I think my mom was my age. Yuck. Am I really getting that old? Anyway, my mom wanted a Mercedes-Benz, and they bought a slightly used 20,000 mile Mercedes-Benz ML320. And, what the hell, we'll splurge a little bit. And the car was not that expensive either, which should tell you it was, they call those the Alabama trash can, apparently, because they're made in Alabama and they're trash. But my dad brought it into the Mercedes-Benz dealer for an oil change shortly after they bought it. And I remember his reaction to the price. It was like $150, $200 for an oil change. The engine, the sump, I believe, held 12 quarts of fully synthetic oil. And he wasn't expecting that. Or something crazy. It was some crazy amount of oil in that sump. And that's why they charged so much. And the oil was blacker than the ace of spades. And the dealer said it didn't need to be changed. And my dad's like, what do you mean? Like, well, there's an oil life monitor. You have to follow the oil life monitor. Turns out that was a bad idea. And those engines were known for sludging, I guess, because people would do that. And then they'd go in and buy another brand new Mercedes-Benz. But anyway, don't buy an ML320. Yeah, that thing was trash. It had all kinds of problems. 20,000 miles, and they went to a drive-in theater about a year or so after they bought it, at a drive-in theater, and they went to go put the windows up, and the switch broke. And yeah, it was just not a very. I drove it a few times too, and it was shithouse. I mean, the thing drove like shit. It just did not. It was a terrible vehicle. But anyway, but it was a Mercedes-Benz. In name only. It was a Mercedes-Benz in name only. That's okay. They only kept it for like 2 years, and then they traded it in. But anyway, well, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video was informative to anyone looking to buy a CX-30. And my response is, yeah, buy a CX-30. I'm not crazy about the exterior styling. I think the cladding is a little too much. On the CX-5, the cladding is understated. It's there, it adds to the vehicle, but on the CX-30, it's just too much. That's my humble opinion. So when you look at the CX-30 next to a CX-5 or even a CX-50, the CX-30, it has more cladding than a Pontiac. The cladding to steel ratio is a little skewed. I don't like it, but you know what? We don't always buy vehicles because of how they look either. So sometimes how the vehicle drives and its expected longevity are major factors before the styling is factored in. So, on that note, let's get on with it and close out this video.